A glitch has recently been discovered in Halo Infinite which allows you to become invincible at Mission 5 excavation site. In this video we'll be using this glitch to become invincible and break out of the map and explore the previously unreachable regions of the map, including the unused islands in the northeast corner of the map surrounding the House of Reckoning. By doing some exact inputs, grappling through the excavation beam using ground pound and immediately opening up the tac map, we can see that we get damaged by the beam, but we can still use the tac map. If we now teleport to an FOB, we will now be invincible if we pull off the glitch correctly. Moving over to the east part of the island, to the chasm, we can jump over and ground pound our way out of the area, and we are now free to roam the rest of the ring before we've completed the mission excavation site. Securing FOB Hotel will allow us to fast travel to this location in the future if we decide to close out the game. On a cliff just east of FOB Hotel, there should be a Banshee spawning, and with this we can now freely fly anywhere on the ring. So what would happen if we flew over to the AA gun island and destroyed the 3 AA guns before we even get shot down by them in the mission Pelican down? Well, unfortunately, the panel we use to interact with the AA guns does not spawn in until we've loaded the mission. The same goes for all 3 AA guns. The core we exposed during the mission to destroy and blow up the AA guns does not spawn either, making it impossible for us to destroy them before we arrive at the mission. There's a slight glow hinting at there being a gravity lift, even though there is none active. And just like the other interactive elements, the button to activate the gravity lifts are also not here. Going over to the crashed Pelican, where we find Echo 216 hiding at the end of Pelican down, there is no trigger for the cutscene and we can walk in and check out the interior of the Pelican. It seems like all interactable mission items and triggers unfortunately only spawn when we enter the mission. While on our way to the silent auditorium, we can see that there are some odd, seemingly misplaced particle emitters floating near the bottom of this large cliff structure. I don't know what they're doing here, but they're here. And if we try to fly all the way over to the silent auditorium, we are unfortunately met with an invisible barrier that prevents us from going any further. Checking the map reveals that the auditorium on the map and the one in reality are not actually at the same place. We can see the real auditorium way out there on that island, while where we are right now is actually where it shows that it is on the map. Going over to where Mission 2 Foundation starts, there's no resemblance whatsoever of the area where we get dropped off in the beginning by Echo 216, but we can fly in under the island and explore the hollow inside of the island here. At many locations of the map, there are these small scenery phantoms floating about just outside of the invisible barrier. They seem to stay still looking from the mainland, but from this close we can actually see that they are moving just very slowly. And just like the previous 2 missions going out to where Warship Grabrakan is on the map, we find nothing. And if we actually check out the end cutscene for the first level, we can actually see that the warship is a fair distance away from the Halo, so this makes sense. These representations of the levels are probably just placed where they are on the map for user convenience, to allow players to check progress on the collectibles and to replay these levels when that feature is eventually patched into the game down the line. Going over to the small archipelago north of the playable space and south of the missions The Road and the House of Reckoning, we found that our Banshee actually explodes when we exit the vehicle, which indicates that we are currently outside of a playable space. These islands, even though they might not be intended to be viewed this up close, are actually very detailed with beautiful cliffs and even ground foliage in some areas. There are some floating ground geometry spread out floating about, which act exactly as you would expect with collisions. But these islands are so far away from the playable space that there's no way a player would ever see these small misplaced geometry bits. Continuing our journey with yet another Banshee, we can find more floating ground patches. These small islands are unfortunately not very interesting and seem to mostly work as set dressing. There are some openings in the hex walls, which opens up some easy exploration under the map. It's interesting to see how much of the cliff and rock models that are actually hidden below the ground geometry and never actually shown to the players. Continuing to fly along the islands, we eventually reach the backside of the House of Reckoning, and flying too close to the play space for the road mission makes us go into a trigger volume that sets the time of day to the same time of day as during the road mission. So for the rest of this exploration, we'll have the same time of day. On the main large island south of the mission, The Road, there are these hex pillars that are mysteriously lined up in a straight line, which can't be viewed from the actual playable space. And that's about it for the findings on the southern islands. And now for the interesting part, the large, beautiful northern island. This island is a vast open space with the sharp cliffs, a giant mountain and a huge sprawling lake, much larger than what we can actually see in the playable area of the campaign. This island overall has very interesting and beautiful areas, and unlike the southern islands, you can actually exit the Banshee here without it exploding, which hints that at some point in development they actually might have planned this to be some sort of playable space. If we fly up between two of the mountain tops, there's a small grass patch overlooking the center of the island where a lonely sniper rifle spawns, possibly leftovers from when this was planned to be playable. On the southeastern side, there's a banished building planted into the ground as if it has crashed and burned itself into the ground. Unfortunately, there's nothing of interest inside. At the edge of the large lake, the water geometry actually doesn't go all the way, creating a cut in the water, allowing us to look under the surface. When crouching, it clips our view to be above the surface, forcing the player's cameras to always be above surface. The water in this lake, like the ones in the playable areas, are also very shallow. Maybe they at one point wanted to have deep lakes but had to cut it due to resource or time constraints and instead opted to having shallow waters all over, clipping player perspectives to prevent them from going below the shallow surface. And now, in my opinion, the coolest finding in my journey across these islands. Near the lake there is a path leading into the mountains and a cave entrance. When we approach this cave, a glowing haze appears, and as we move into the cave, this glowing haze shifts and moves about. The cave is very detailed for being a non-playable area, which is another indicator that they at some point intended this to be playable. The cave finally ends up in a large room with some water. Continuing further, we reach a wall that we can't move past, which seems to be ground geometry. And if we approach the cave from the other side, we see the same haze glow as we approach, and as we could see in the previous clip, the cave is blocked off from this side with some ground geometry. These were the things that I managed to find in my journey across Zeta's Out of Bounds. Let me know if you found anything else exploring Out of Bounds, or if you'd like me to explore some other areas. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.